Hello everyone and welcome to JAMwBreadGames. For this video, I thought that I would discuss my thoughts on the recently released demo for NieR Automata, which I keep getting the name wrong. I think it's Automata, it's Automata, Tomato, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, as I discuss the demo, I'll let my gameplay of the demo play in the background. And if you are afraid of spoilers, then you may want to stop the video here. I know how that can be. Like, I really hate seeing or hearing spoilers, and I will be discussing some minor things. So, just if you really hate spoilers, you may not want to watch, just so your gameplay experience won't be ruined when you play the full game. Also, if you want to see my gameplay of the demo with my live commentary, then make sure to turn on annotations and click on the link. But anyway, the demo was actually announced at the PlayStation Experience and was released as a free demo for the PS4. I played through the demo the other day and thought that I would discuss my experience with it as well as my first impressions that I took away from the game. To begin with, NieR Automata is considered an action/role-playing game. See what I did there? But I would say that it's from the third-person perspective. But the point of view actually changes depending on where you are in the environment and who you are fighting, which I'll discuss this in more detail in a little while. The game will be published by Square Enix and is being developed by Platinum Games, the studio behind games such as Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. The latter of those two I've played a demo for. Sorry, I haven't played the famed Bayonetta yet, but I really want to. But I can see some similarities with the hack and slash nature of the protagonist. Also, I'm pretty sure that some of the people behind the original NieR game are also working on this entry, which I've heard that game was actually pretty fun, which I haven't had the chance to play that game either, but like the other games, I've heard it's pretty cool. Another thing as well, this game is being released on the PS4 on March 7th, and a PC version will be released on March the 17th. There have been discussions to bring the game to Xbox as well, so maybe we will see a release for it soon, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it, at least for the foreseeable future. As for the setting and story of the game, in the future the Earth has been taken over by machines and has forced the humans to evacuate to the moon. The humans begin to develop android soldiers to take Earth back. You play as one of these androids named 2B, and I guess you make your way to Earth in order to defeat the machines that have conquered the Earth. It's a pretty crazy setting, and I actually didn't know the backstory when I played the demo, but I didn't feel the need to know the story during the 30 plus minutes that it took me to finish the demo. Hopefully the story can be implemented into the full game in a smart way, and in a way that will add to the game rather than subtract from it. I'm also interested to see how this plays out in the game and how big of a role the story will actually play in the game. Now onto my thoughts of the demo itself. Let me just start by saying that I really enjoyed my time with the demo. And the reason I say this is because I wasn't sure what to expect when I went into the game. I honestly wasn't expecting a lot from the game and thought that would be a missed stab at the hack and slash or RPG genres. Sorry, I'll stop the jokes. But the only thing that I knew when I began the game was the fact that there might be some similarities between NieR and the Drakengard series of games. NieR is the name of the third game in this series of Drakengard games. I haven't played this game like I mentioned earlier, but I recently played through almost an hour of Drakengard 3, which you can see by clicking the link if you'd like. I thought that Drakengard 3's combat was enjoyable, but the setting and characters were a bit bland for my taste. Since NieR is supposedly in the same universe, I was afraid that this would be the case here as well, but thankfully this game seems to sport not only fresh gameplay, but also fresh characters in a new setting. From the limited time that I was allotted in the demo, I felt immersed in the post-apocalyptic setting and even found the characters to be pretty interesting. There wasn't a whole lot of exposition, I guess, for the characters, but just kind of seeing how they interacted with each other and just how they acted, I really am interested to see how their stories play out. Another thing that stood out was the graphics of this game. Playing on the PS4 Pro, I was able to have smooth frame rates, which I would assume were in the 60s for most of the gameplay and the 30s for certain cutscenes, and there were also tons of beautiful environments. The textures for the different locations and characters were all beautifully rendered in great detail. The game may not be the most beautiful game on the PS4 or the most realistic looking one, but it certainly does stand out as being particularly gorgeous and has a unique look to it. But the main reason we play games is for the gameplay itself, so let's talk about that. To continue my string of positive statements, I enjoyed the gameplay as well, although I do have some small issues that I feel need to be addressed. The first of which is the flying companion that you have. He's kind of like Clank to your Ratchet from the Ratchet & Clank series, except instead of just helping you hover, which he does in this game as well, he also has a machine gun with seemingly unlimited ammo and a laser beam that frequently recharges after a small amount of time. Now what makes the character cool is that you can actually control him yourself. You can choose what to fire at, and you can even fire at targets as your character 2B is attacking them with her melee weapon. But what I think makes him a bit overpowered is the fact that there is not a cooldown or any kind of reloading option for his weapon. You can simply sit back and fire unlimited bullets at your foes until they drop dead. Now, it would be much faster to simply kill them with your blade, but it is easier just to sit back and let the bot do all of the work. Which, of course, you do not have to do, but it almost feels like the most logical and safe way to approach each battle. You can kill most enemies without even having to attack them with melee combat. I would like to see a cooldown on his weapon so that you have to choose carefully when you need to use his ability. That way, using your flying companion isn't always the first option that you choose when you begin a battle. Maybe you will try to conserve his ability in case you run into a larger enemy around the next corner, or just use it to destroy flying projectiles that are hovering towards you, or to begin dwindling down the health of large groups of enemies before you go in to finish them off with your sword. No matter what happens with the character's ability, I simply hope that it can be balanced in a way that puts more focus on melee combat and less focus on ranged combat. There are shielded enemies that can't be shot, which discourages you from using your companion all of the time, but you can remove their shields fairly easy, and I only encountered a few of them in the demo. I think the game excels with sword combat, and I would hate to have another feature take away from how effective and enjoyable the swordplay feels, which is what I'll talk about next. The swordplay is really fun. It's fairly simple with basic light and heavy attacks as well as jumping attacks, but what makes the game fun is how fast the combat feels. Now, the swordplay isn't particularly fast, but the player movement is. You can sprint and dodge at very fast speeds, which can allow you to quickly close the gap between you and the enemies that you are fighting. It makes the game feel fast and fluid and gives you quite the adrenaline rush as you play the demo. I also felt that the movements were extremely accurate and responded well to my touch. You really have to time the dodges, you have to time them perfectly to make sure that you don't get killed. And it really made it more enjoyable when I engaged the different enemies in combat. Speaking of enemies, I found them to be fairly easy to slice through, but I only played on normal difficulty for my first playthrough of the demo. I recently went back and played the demo on hard and a little bit of very hard, and they are a lot more challenging to face on these difficulties. What made them interesting, though, was the variety of enemies. There are melee enemies, enemies who fire from range, flying enemies, and shielded enemies that you can't shoot until you break their shield. Not to mention some really fun, cinematic, and intense boss fights. I love the variety in the enemies and how challenging the harder difficulties prove to be while still managing to be enjoyable. Although once you die in the demo, it ends the demo and starts back from the beginning, which can be frustrating, but it's still an interesting way to test yourself. Moving away from combat, I want to talk about something different and interesting that this game features, which is different camera angles during gameplay. This is probably the first game that I've encountered that uses multiple camera angles for different situations, other than games that switch between third and first person for scopes, such as the Ghost Recon series. But the game is primarily a third-person perspective game, but during certain encounters, the camera shifted to at least two different positions. At some points, the camera would have a top-down approach similar to Hotline Miami or the Dead Ops arcade game in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. This camera view would come into play when there would be multiple enemies surrounding you and would allow for you to see who all is attacking you at one time. And then at other times, the camera would resemble that of a side-scroller game, such as different fighting games, except that the camera is much farther away than the normal fighter. Now, one thing too is that these positions weren't fixed angles, like they would actually move as you walked around the environment. I didn't realize how much this would impact the gameplay and keep the game fresh and entertaining. What is interesting too is that the gameplay doesn't change at all. The controls stay the same, but your point of view simply changes. The only thing that really changed was just the direction in which you had to aim your robot thing when he was shooting. It doesn't seem like this would really impact the game too heavily, but to me at least, it made the battle seem less repetitive and gave me a new way to approach each combat scenario. To conclude this first impressions video, I really enjoyed my time with NieR Automata. I was pleasantly surprised by how fun the gameplay was, how dynamic the different battles and camera angles were, and how cinematic the environments and characters were portrayed. There are some minor issues that I have with the game, mainly the companion character, that I hope will be fixed in some way, or at least looked at and maybe kind of redesigned in some ways. But if this problem can be fixed, if the gameplay can stay fun for the duration of the game, and if the game can deliver an enjoyable cast of characters and story, I think that NieR Automata will be a fantastic game for 2017.